Hello everybody and welcome to this new MOC video here on my channel. Now this is a Republic gunship, also known as the LAAT/I, Low Altitude Assault Transport/Infantry. Now I'm gonna take you through a little bit of a tour of the build, of the details, and also in the second half of the video I'm gonna show you the construction. So let's go ahead. Starting up front, I think an interesting part of the build is the ball turrets down here, because I tried to integrate them into the fuselage, into the actual build, so they just don't stick out, but they're actually inset into this piece in the back here, which is some sort of engine or turbine piece with a little bit of hollow space. Now I also used the olive color instead of lime green, and I thought that was a little bit more appropriate of a look because it doesn't look as striking as lime green, so I also went with that. In the middle you can see this dark stripe, this dark gray stripe in there, and so that's the front section. Now on the side you see the small yellow details, which kind of, they're not exactly in the places where they should be, they're just there so that you know they're included, but they might not be in the perfect spot, which was something I didn't really care all that much about there. Now it's quite similar with this little arch that we have here, because actually if it was super accurate this would go up all the way to about here next to the Republic symbol, but I really wanted to use this large slope piece which slopes in two directions, of course, like it gets a little thinner towards the front and also does this tapering towards the top. Now in the back behind this arch we have of course the ball turret, and this turret is made using some hinge pieces, and the ones on the top open up so that you can see your trooper inside there, and if you look closely he's also got some controls going on in there. Now behind the ball turret of course we have the all famous troop bay of the gunship. Now you can see the troop bay is sort of, half of it is actual usable space for clone troopers, and in the back, if I open up the door, which is made using Technic pieces as you see, there is a speeder bike, so the space is kind of split in half between trooper space and the speeder space. And of course, as it should be, the ball turrets can also retract into the body of the ship, into this cargo bay, so that ultimately they don't stick out a lot anymore and they are nicely put in there. You can also arrange them so that they don't look so cranked, but very straight and nice, like this. Now if I take the speeder bike out down in there, you might see in the back there's a little hook, and that hook is what keeps the speeder bike in place in the back, and in the front there are those two little cheese slope pieces which prevent the speeder bike from moving all around. Now this is what the cargo bay looks like without anything in it. As far as the speeder bike goes, I tried to keep it as small as possible so that it would fit into that cargo bay while still being good looking with a minifigure on it. And I think you can see how it is made. Each piece should be kind of clear to see, and so if you want to go and rebuild it, feel free to do so. Now there we have the trooper on the speeder bike. This is what it looks like. So he's sitting there and ready to swoosh around. Now I might note that the trooper on top of the speeder bike doesn't fit in the cargo bay anymore, because it just is a little bit, there's not enough headroom back in there. That's something that I just have to admit. So if I close the doors back up now, we'll get a look at the back construction. So there you can see how the door is made. It starts at a very flat angle for the back construction there. So this is what it looks like. It's made out of Technic pieces 2. And in the very back you can see how it slopes up again. And then we have this back ball turret, which is on a, well, bionicle or action figure joint and rotates freely. You can also see there's a Technic beam going on here that stays in place if I open up the door. So this is some spot where I included Technic pieces, which you will see later on. There are many of in this build, well, sort of many, to keep it all nice and sturdy. As the back slopes up, we have the grilled parts, these outlets, and at the very top we of course have the missiles that are ready to be loaded into the large missile launchers on each side. And this is what that looks like. And in the front of those missiles we can see how it all just slopes back down again using these car roof or hood pieces and goes back to the cockpits. Now I realize I haven't actually talked about the cockpits, so the way that I made them is I used a preformed little piece for the windscreen in the middle. So this rather new-ish windscreen piece by Lego, and on the sides I added some cheese slopes in there to give it the right look. And at the top one, of course, has the red stripe going down the middle, and only the windows on the side are, you know, glass, actual glass. Talking about the wings, there's nothing that spectacular as far as the look goes. The interesting part might be the ball turret down here, which I kind of inset into the wing. You can see there's like an octagon left open in the wing construction, and then I clipped in this construction for the ball turret, which has one lasering dish at the top and one on the bottom, as you can see. You can also see that there are some missiles on the underside of the wing as it is supposed to be. And that's pretty much it for the wings. And now it's time to get into the ship, and we're gonna start with the actual, you know, part which is sort of playable. You can just pop this roof construction up, and as we do so, we get to look at the two pilots, which in this case are just regular clone troopers, but you know, one is meant to be the pilot and one is meant to be the gunner of the main missile launchers and turrets. And you may notice the one on the front is actually sitting in this strange 90-degree turn, and that's because he wouldn't fit if I just took him and put him in there regularly, like the one in the back. Because, you know, there are these slope pieces on the side that I really wanted to keep everything nice without anything gappy on the outside. You don't really notice it. He's leaning towards the side a tiny little bit, but if you don't know, you don't notice. Taking these pilots out, we get to look at their seats. So we have black seat designs, nothing special, and on either side of every seat there are some controls. And behind the seats we have this little cover with some small details on it and the stud in the middle, and that is where the roof will get attached, so that it fits on there firmly without any gaps and so it doesn't wobble around. And that's pretty much it, you know, so this is the gunship, the way that it looks and works and functions. But now let's have a look at the inner construction. So I'm gonna do this somewhat live on camera. I'm just gonna take off the roof at first. We all saw that. And then I'm gonna detach the wings. They are just connected with some small clips on top, some hinges. You know, these no friction hinges, 2 of them. And this is where they get connected. And then there's this little thing that the wing leans on. It just gets detached using Technic pieces, Technic pins and axles. And we can do this on the other side too, to get everything a little bit more easy to handle. And this is what our build looks like right now. I'm gonna take off the ball turrets too. So taking those turrets off, we have this remaining, this sort of main fuselage. And what we're going to do now, we're going to take the doors and detach them. And this is our first little spot that we can get a better look at right now. In the back you can see that little hook. Behind the door you just saw this gray construction, and that is used to keep the door at the right angle so it doesn't move and it stays at the angle that is needed. We have this remaining, and now something I also want to point out is the floor construction. You can see these long Technic beams. They are all one Technic brick, 16 studs long if I'm not mistaken. And what they do is they keep the bottom from bending, because if it was just plates down there, the weight of the top with the wings on and stuff would just, you know, weigh everything down, and what would happen is basically this, that things would collapse in the back and then the front would lift up a little bit just because of the force of the weight. So these Technic pieces do a good job in, making that effect rather small. It still happens a bit, the top is still, being moved up a little bit if everything is on the ship, not as it is right now, but they do a good job. Now that's it for that. In the very back you can see where these Technic pieces go up. If I just take this cover off, you can see how this turret is connected. It's set in there and then it's kept in place because it's moved against the stud. So the socket piece doesn't move at all. It is, squeezed in place, tucked in place, sort of. And then also only the turret moves. So next up, we're going to detach this long side panel. So this is basically that. Just gets connected to these studs right in here. And then we can also take this cover, which is just used to, not have the look of these Technic pieces exposed. And if we do so, we can see that basically a Technic frame goes across the entire back section. It starts down in here with these white lift arms, no, not lift arms, but just Technic bricks. It starts somewhere down in here at the front core, goes all the way to the back, goes up, goes back, and also there's an extension with Technic pieces going through here to keep everything in place. And you can also see that the white pieces here, they are offset by half a stud. So the Technic brick ends right here, and then the wall up top is inset half a stud. And that's because this is where the door is shut. So if I take a door now and just put it on there like so, you can see this is where it would stop. And then this is where our panel would go, so that everything fits firmly without any gaps. This is the way that I went with these offset pieces here, as if I was using jumper plates, but I actually did it using Technic pieces. So in order to get a little bit more of a look, we can also remove this top cover, and we can also move the section with the missiles. I'm just gonna try that now. This is what it looks like. We have this upper Technic beam going through there, and what this does is you can see there are these 1x2 Technic bricks attached to the longer one, and that causes everything to be offset by that half stud, as if I was using a jumper plate, so that everything in the end fits on there nicely. Now what I just did is I took off some pieces off the front so that you can see the construction a little bit better. It's using a lot of studs on the side construction, and this is where these wheel arch pieces would then go and fit right on top of that, bolt turret, which is itself just connected to the side of a bracket. So this is what that front looks like. Now you might wonder, why didn't I put the bolt turret in here? Because then I could have it all facing forward. Now the truth is, this 2x2 square doesn't fit in here, so what I had to do is attach it sideways, and thus only having it pointing 45 degrees towards the front and not perfectly straight if you want to. So that's something that could be called a trade-off there. And you can also get a look at what's behind these slope pieces here, so at the very core of the front, and that's all plates and plates again. It's all plates stuck on top of one another, stacked in there, because the idea was to get a counterweight to the heavy back by stuffing up the front with plates, and especially with plates because one brick is, more hollow, is less material than 3 plates stacked on top of one another. So this is all just filled up with plates to get a somewhat heavy front as a counterbalance to the back. So that's what I did. Now this is pretty much the build. And now I'm just gonna rebuild this thing and end this video. So now here we have everything back in its original shape. Everything is reassembled. And I'm just gonna say thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the first part where I showed, what it looks like, what the details are, and then the second part where I showed the build and the construction behind what you see. So have a great day and bye.